And we're live. I'm super excited that you guys are joining me today. I am here with Doug Bryant, and he is the owner of Fish Window Cleaning in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And he is here today to help us dispel some myths about house cleaners cleaning windows, right? I get asked this question a lot from house cleaners who like, hey, let's just add in a little bit of extra, money by washing people's windows. And I do not want us to do that. Doug is going to tell us all the reasons why. So, Doug, hello and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Speaking of ladders, I'm curious to know in some of your training, have you heard any stories of people that have either fallen off ladders or that they've had accidents because they weren't following the OSHA standards or they weren't being careful?
We've heard stories. I mean, nothing has ever happened within our business. We're very careful. Most of the other fish franchisees are, well, I shouldn't say most, they all take it very seriously. We've heard of things happening where someone will be kind of walking along a roof line and no one is spotting them. No one's watching and warning them. And they're just going about their business cleaning and they don't realize how close they are to an edge and they'll step off. So things like that have happened. But again, it's really just about training your people, making sure they're aware of those risks, making sure that no one does this stuff alone. Someone's always watching and spotting and giving warnings and things like that.
I appreciate you saying that. And I love the fact that you guys are so careful because you can't run a business if somebody's in the hospital with a broken back. I
Right.
mean, you just can't. And like you said, there are certain times you can't use your magic wand. I'm going to call it a magic wand with the
Sure.
filter
Sure. Fair
system
enough.
because inside many of the homes, especially where I live, they do have the two-story great rooms or they have the two-story entryway windows. And then in order to get up there, it's very tall up there, like 12, 15 feet up there. And in order to, like you said, get a good grip or a good angle, you got to do something fantastic up there to make sure that it's clean. Otherwise, you see the spots from all the different angles in the room as you walk by.
Yes.
So, how do you bid for that? I mean, I'm guessing you have to do a walkthrough on the job, right?
Well, we do have to walk around. Usually, we're only walking around the outside of the house to price it. If there's anything special about the inside that the homeowner is asking for, we'll go inside. But a lot of times, we're going from one place to the next doing estimates throughout the day or throughout the week. So we will typically just kind of walk around the outside and we can get a really good idea of what we're dealing with. Now, doing that has its pros and cons because sometimes you don't realize you look up at a window and you give it a price and then you don't realize that, oh, on the inside there's no second floor there, so you have to get up on a ladder. So you have to be careful about pricing things by just walking around the outside of the house, but we do our best to try to take into account, and the more you do this, the better you get at it.
So, just like in the house cleaning business, we like to recommend window cleaners because we don't clean windows ourselves. And the exception to that would be a glass sliding door that would take you from like the kitchen outside to the patio, for example. I know in Florida, we have lots of those. Like a home will have three sets of those, one coming
Mhm.
out from the primary bedroom, one from the living room, and one from the kitchen.
Great.
And that's, kind of an exception to the rule. But if you can stand flat footed and it's right there where the dog brushes his nose up against the window and you get all the smudges, we will clean that. But other
Mhm.
than that, we don't do windows. Do you, as a window cleaner, also recommend other services, not house cleaning service, but let's say like a window company that could replace a broken thermal seal or something like that?
From time to time, if we have a company that we're aware of that we trust and we know their reputation or we've worked with them before, we will recommend various other services that we don't perform ourselves. I was just asked yesterday about, can you repair my screens if they have holes? No, we can't. That's not something we do. And honestly, I'm not aware of a company personally that does that. I know they're around, but
Mhm.
I couldn't recommend anyone because I've never worked with anyone like that.
Well, and that's a fair question. I know that somebody came to my house today to do a service, but because he has very tall ladders that go up, my first question was, "Oh, there's someone with a ladder." If they're
Yes.
skilled and they're comfortable on a ladder and they're insured for a ladder, could they replace that shutter that fell down in the last storm or whatever?
Yes. We've done some things like that as long as we feel qualified to do it. Just like the situation you just mentioned, all the time when we're cleaning a second story, an open foyer or something like that, if they have a chandelier with bulbs out, if they have the bulbs, we'll change it while we're up there. If there's a ledge there that gets a lot of dust and they can't get to it, we'll dust it off before we clean the window. If we feel
Mhm.
qualified and safe to do it, we'll do things like that. but I'd rather recommend a professional for something more technical. We have a business here in our little business park that does window tinting. That's their business. And I know their work. I feel very comfortable recommending them to people. So when they ask me, do you know anyone that tints windows? Absolutely. Call these people.
Well, tell me about the window tinting because I know when we moved to the house that we're in, the way that the sun rises in the morning, we've got a whole row of windows. We didn't want it to discolor the hardwood floors. And so we had
Mhm.
all of those inside windows tinted so that it would shade the flooring from being discolored or whatever, just for resale value on the home.
Right.
So, does it change or does it affect the window cleaning when you clean a window that has that tinting on it?
Yes, we have to be very careful when there's a window tint. If it's a film, a window tint film that's applied to the window, you can actually buy tinted windows. The actual cleaning is the same. We don't do anything different. However, once in a while, we will use, if there's a spot that needs to be buffed out, we'll use a product. Typically, we clean with soap and water. But if there is something that's really hard to get at, you have some adhesive or something like that, we have some products that will get that off. And if it's a spot that's just not coming out with a regular microfiber towel or whatever towel we're using, we will sometimes use a very fine steel wool to buff that out. Doing that on a film, chemicals will eat through it, and the very fine steel wool, even though it won't scratch windows, it will scratch the tint. So we have to be
Mm.
very careful about not using things like that on a window with tint. So we just have to be very aware whether or not there's a tint on it, because if you get to cleaning other windows and you don't realize there's a tint there, you're not going to ruin the window, but you can ruin the film and have to pay to replace that. So we don't want to do that either.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think every industry has its don't do this moments, right?
Mhm.
Where there are little things that you kind of learn by trial and error. And from where I sit, I get hundreds of calls a week of people that are like, I used steel wool on something they shouldn't have. And
Mhm.
it either scratched something or they used a pumice stone on something that they shouldn't have used it on or whatever, thinking, oh, it worked really well on this one surface. It might work really well on another. And all
Right.
surfaces are not equal. So I'm really glad that you brought that up because it is the reason why, as professionals and home service providers, that we are insured in case there's an accident and for some reason we goofed.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much today for all of the insights and inspiration and for letting us know why house cleaners don't clean windows.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the questions. I enjoyed it.
This has been awesome. Thanks again.